All right. So for today's class, we're going to look at the concept of middleware. CORS. CORS stands for cross-origin resource sharing and bigger applications. By bigger applications, I simply mean that how do we now have multiple files in one single application? How do we manage those files? How do we structure it? How do we link them up? How do we communicate with all of them, right? And let Fast API see all of them as what as a single project, unlike what we've been doing previously, where each file it's for a single project. So basically, everything stays and live and die in that particular file. So in this particular class, we're gonna see how we can do that in a very better and more appropriate way, and more convenient as well, right? And more convenient as well. Right, and then after this class, I think we have like about one serious class left, and then we deploy. After that, we have, I think, the remaining classes would likely be for revision and as the case may be, right? So in preparation for the project phase and all of that. All right, so let's continue. Okay, so we already know the process. You have to move from slide to our VS Code, and then every explanation will live and die in VS Code, right? So that way we don't have to switch screen between the slides and our VS Code, right? So we don't take our attention up and down. Okay, so I will move straight to VS Code. And I will still use a single file to demonstrate the concept of middleware and cross-origin resource sharing. Then after that, we now see how we can structure these files properly for a bigger applications. So if that's the case, of course, we have to go back to our CodeCamp 5.0. This is this man here. We will have our library box and our source code there. Right. So I'll open this directory in command prompt. So we're already familiar with this man. All right, so we have to activate our library. If not, we cannot do anything because the module that we are using is not available on our hard drive directly like that. So you have to somehow activate this man so that we can get access to that library. So library, library box, backslash script. Yeah, backslash activate. So we have that activated. Now I can move into my main folder where we have all our source code. Then I can open up this man in VS Code. Okay. All right, so Barry, please go ahead and ask a question before we start. Yeah. Ask the question. Is he still with us? Please don't tell me there's nothing.
Okay. Are you hearing me, sir?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. It's better.
Hello, sir.
Okay. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes,
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, okay. This question I want to ask, I've already asked it on the group, but I just want to get the confirmation from you. So I'll drop the pictures in the chat.
I can no longer hear him. Is anyone that can hear him? I heard up to chat box or chat section. After that, I didn't hear him.
No, I can't hear him either.
All right, so I think we've lost Mr. Barry. We'll proceed to whenever he comes on board, and then you can continue with question. Mr. Barry. All right, so this is where we left off in our previous class. So in our previous class, we looked at security and dependency, and of course, the concept was very simple and very straightforward, right? To secure a route, we simply pass this class as a dependency to that particular route, and that is secured, right? And then this class, all right, takes in a URL for getting the token, right? Because that's how that class behaves. So that class, the behavior of this class is that it checks the header section, right? And what it's looking for is a key that is called authorization alongside with a text or a value that starts with bearer and some random string, right? And if it's there, then it returns that token to the variable that invoked that dependency, right? And if it's not there, of course, that class will automatically raise a for. Is it for or something like that, like unauthorized access situation there, right? So it's a very simple concept. With that was just basically how route is being secured, or how route is being changed from public route to a more private route, a route that requires one to know what to sign up, or yeah, to sign up and log in to what to get a token that has to come from the server, right? And the simplest way of doing that, of keeping track of tokens that we generated, was using what a JWT, JSON Web Token. So because each token is being generated with our secret key, so our secret key somehow plays a vital role when that token is being generated. So because that token is being generated with that secret key, it means that we can as well decode that token using the same secret key. That way we don't have to buy space or buy database just to be saving tokens, right? So we can have 10 million users signing up almost at every 1 hour. So imagine saving 10 million tokens after every one. It's too difficult. Like it's very unnecessary, right? To be saving all those tokens. So that is why JWT came into the picture. And then we can just simply generating and just keep sending out, generating and keep sending out. As far as that token was being generated with our secret key, we can always decode it back, right? We can always decode it back and get whatever information was being encoded within that token, right? So that way we can always know who is requesting for what, for a secure route. And of course, we can render a specific data to that particular user, right? To that particular user. Okay, so I think I also left behind this task, which I believe that we tried it out on our own end, and it works, right? I believe this stuff here, this thing here worked as expected. I want to believe that it worked as expected. Okay, so but before we move into middleware, cross-origin resource sharing, and so on and so forth, right? So there's one more concept that I would love to cover, specifically in security. Unfortunately, we were not able to cover it in our previous class due to time, right? The concept of password hashing. So it's part of a security thing. So basically, it's a process where you don't just save password as a plain password. It simply means that if someone should lay hands on your database, or should lay hands on the credential that leads to your database, I can simply just get a user's information and somehow access the account and somehow get whatever I need to get from that account, which is very risky, right? Which is very risky. So if I can get your email and password, it simply means I can log in your account, right? So in that kind of situation, we have to implement certain security measures like hashing of password, right? Like hashing of password. So hashing is more like a mathematical way of embedding a plain text to and then converting it to what, to a random string, a random string that basically has literally no meaning. And the difference between hashing and encryption, please, I think most people tend to conflict that thing. There's a difference between hashing and encryption. Those two things are two different things. Hashing is a one-way process. It means that when you hash, you cannot unhash again. Like you cannot change that hash version to your plain password. So once it's hashed permanently, right? But encryption is a two-way process. Once you encrypt, you can do what? You can decrypt. So have you ever heard of hash and the hashed? You can never you can never hear of the hashed, right? So once it's hashed, right? But then there's also a method of making sure that whatever plain text comes in is equivalent to what was hashed, right? So there are some mathematical things that happen behind the scene, right, that can help us to carry out that comparison, but we can never change that hash version back to a plain text. Are we making sense? Are we making sense? Are we even
Yes,
hearing
sir.
myself? Okay. All right. So now
Yes,
let's
yes.
right. So now let's see how we can implement that in this project here real quick before we proceed, right? And then before we proceed with before we proceed with to middleware and cross origin resource and all that stuff. Okay, so let's see. So there are different. The good thing is that Python has a lot of libraries for hashing of password, right? There are many of them. There are plenty of them, right? But the popular one is the one we call password leap. You can all these things has nothing to do with fast API, right? So you just bring in all these things. The whole function of fast API is to convert your function to a route, right? That makes it look like a URL that can accept request and process it and send out a standardized data. That's the whole point of fast API. But then there are other external libraries that we can use within this whole project that can make our project more efficient, right? So things like JWT. JWT has nothing to do with fast API, but you just have to bring it in for token generation. Same thing happens with Parslip. So Parslip is a popular Python library, and of course you can always look this man up, right? You can always look this man up. There are different models or libraries out there that you can always use for password hashing. But for this particular class, we will use password leap, right? So we will use password leap, which is a very common hashing model in Python that people mostly use. And of course, this model takes in different kinds of hashing algorithm, right? So it's similar to JWT that also have a different kind of algorithms, right? So Parslip to also have a different kind of algorithm, and if you want to know that, you can just simply Google Parslip algorithms, right? So Parslip algorithms, and you should be able to see the available algorithm that this man has embedded in itself, right? I think the most recommended one is bcrypt, right? Is bcrypt. So this one you can say that it's widely used and secure algorithm. So it's quite suited. It's well suited for a general purpose password hashing, right? So we also have Agon 2, we have PB, KDF, and so on and so forth. We have the less secure ones. So we have the MD5 crypt and or hash and all those stuff, DS crypt and so on and so forth, right? But for this particular class, we'll use this particular algorithm for that hashing, right? For that hashing. But also keep in mind, like I said previously, the difference between hashing and encryption. Hashing is a one-way thing, right? Once you hash, you cannot hash, right? But decryption is two-way thing. Once you decrypt, once you encrypt, you can always decrypt, right? You can always decrypt. You can change that decryption back, that a random text back to the plain text. But for hashing, that is not possible, right? Once you hash it, it stays permanently. All right, so let's go ahead and let's bring in password leap. Of course, we don't have this. We don't have password leap available because it is not. If you should do pfreeze, so pfreeze is a command that we use to check all the available dependencies that we've installed so far, right? If I should do pfreeze, and then you see that we should see all the available dependencies that this project is using in this library box, right? So it will show basically every installation that we've done so far on the library box, not on our desktop, not on our PC, right? But specifically on our library box. For some reason, it's taking like forever to come up. Oh boy. All right. So what that is trying to come up, of course, once it's come up, you will definitely see that we do not have a password list there because it did not come alongside with all our installation, right? But then we will install password list alongside with bcrypt because bcrypt is the algorithm that we want to actually use for this password hashing. So that command would be what pip install. This one around is gonna be passlib, right? So it's passlib. A is missing here. Passlib, and then in square bracket is the algorithm that we want to install alongside with this library, which is bcrypt, right? Bcrypt, okay? And that will do what that we install password library alongside with bcrypt for hashing of password. Okay, so let's go back and see it's still loading for some reason. All right, so okay, there it is. Somehow I need to, I don't know, because most times my terminal can be lagging. For God knows why. All right, so far this is what we have so far installed for this particular project. We can see and clearly you can see that we do not have anything that resembles password leak. Right. So let's go back and let's go ahead and install this man. So I'll cut this man. Oh, sorry. I will cut this man. We'll go ahead and run that installation. So you come here and then we'll just paste. So please, this is necessary, especially if you are dealing with password, right? This is necessary, but please, under no circumstances should you save someone's password as it is, right? It is wrong, right? It is very wrong. Please don't do that. So you can have the big crypt has been installed alongside one with password and their versions. Right. So let's go back and let's see how this man works. So as usual, let's go and test this man outside of our file of our fast API, and then we understand how the concept flows, right? How the thing move from one point to another point, and then we can know what we can bring it back to what the fast API and implement it. Please, all these libraries are Python libraries, so it works across all Python files, right? Not necessarily your fast API program. So if you can know how to use it in your plain Python script, then of course you can bring it down to where the fast API. So let's go and use that. I think we used new in our testing. Yes, so we used new. So I'll move this JWT. This was for testing of JWT to see how it works. And let's test for what? Let's test for excuse me, let's test for password leap, right? So now the thing is that hashing of password is done by a crypt context function that lives in the password in the passlib dot context package. All right. So basically what do I mean? I mean that function that does the hashing is available in passlib dot context, right? So you say from passlib, right? So from passlib, so for passlib, sorry, passlib dot context, right? So I want to bring in this man called crypt context, right? So this is the man that does that, right? This is the man that does that, right? This is the man that handles the whole function for hashing of password, right? So this man here takes certain things, right? So one of the things he takes is the algorithm for that you intend to use for this hashing, right? One of the things that he says that okay, and one of the things that it requires for this hashing is what is the scheme. So basically, the scheme means the algorithm for what that you want to use for hashing this man, right? So I will simply invoke this man. So I'll call this context. I'll call this pwd underscore context, right? So this is we go ahead and we invoke that class, right? Password lib, and then if you say that once I invoke this class, the only required thing in this class is what is the schemes, right? So the schemes, once you see any parameter within a class that have is like schemes, it means that man takes that the argument that it will take is what is going to likely be a list, right? So this scheme takes in a list of algorithms that you can use. So basically, it means that you can use as many algorithms. So you can use more than one algorithm to hash one single password. But in our case, here, you want to use just one, and which is what the bcrypt, which we actually installed during this past lib installation, right? So I'll come here and then I will specify that schemes should be equals to of course this one takes in an array of what of the algorithms, right? So the one we want to use here is what is bcrypt. So bcrypt will come in here, right? And duplicated can as well. Duplicated is also a parameter that you can use. But for me, I would well, I can choose to use it. I can choose not to use it, right? But deprecated basically means I think let's see, deprecated. So I think they've even taken it out. It's no longer required, right? So it's no longer required. So we leave this man as it is, right? So just basically you invoke this class and right, you pass in the algorithm as a list, right? Which in this case is bcrypt, right? So this is the man that now holds what the tool for password hashing, right? So let's go back. Let's go ahead and hash and let's see how this man works. All right. Okay, so let's assume that this is our password, right? This is our password, right? Assuming, and the password here is let's say 12345 password, right? That is our password there. Okay, so and next thing again is what is that I don't want to save this password as it is, right? I want this password to be saved in the hash version. So even if someone lay hands on our database, what they will get is the hash version of this password, which you cannot use that hash version to log in. Right? You cannot use the hash version to log in. Yeah, you have to use the actual password itself, and then we can do the comparison with the hash version of it. Okay. So let's go back and let's continue again. Let's go back and let's continue again. All right, so let's go and let's hash. All right, so I would say the hash password now, the hashed underscore password pwd would be equals to this tool being the password context, right? This is the variable that holds the invocation of that class that does the hashing, right? So basically, that class, right, dot hash, right? So there is a hash function here. So that class has a hash function, and of course, this man takes in what it takes in the password that we intend to do what to hash. So in this case, I will just say our password, right? What we have up there. So that is so this is the variable that we need to hash. And then if I go ahead and print this man, you will see that you will see the hash version of that password, right? So I can say hash pwd, and if I execute this now, this should give us the hashed version of this map. Hold on, let me pull this map up. For some reason, you guys say that you guys don't usually see this floating control. All right, so please hold on, Mr. Barry. You asked the question. Please hold on a little bit. Let me wrap this man up. Hide floating control. All right. So what you see down here, right? Or what you see down here is what is the hashed version of our password that we have updated. So this is what you want to be saving in your database and not someone's plain password, right? So that's basically how you hashed. But then you will not ask now, what if someone wants to log in? Would the person need to type in this hash word? Because since you are saving this hash word, no. A person doesn't need to type in that hash word. The person needs to type in his own original password again. And then there is also a function that can compare that plain password alongside with the hash version, right? And it can tell if this was the plain one that was converted to that hash one. So remember, hashing has no means of converting that hash version back. So we can only compare, but then we cannot do what we cannot bring back that hash version to the plain password, right? So that means if you can't remember the plain password, there's nothing we can do, right? It's just for you to do what create a new password, right? Just for you to create a new password. So that's just one thing about hashing. If you can't remember the plain one, we cannot. There's no means of getting it back, right? But then with the plain one, you can always compare, right? You can always compare. So let's go ahead and let's compare. So I'll not hash again. So I already assume that we've hashed, but then if I don't hash, this man will somehow not be able to. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to copy this hash one now, right? I want to copy this hash one because this is what we will have saved in the database. So this will be db underscore saved, right? And this is what the hash version of our password. So let's go back and let's compare, right? So same way we have the hashed one, we also have the ability to tell if what is hashed is the same with what is or what was saved, right? So we can do that with the verify function that still lives in the PW in this script context class. So how do you do that? We can simply say I could call this verified underscore PWD. That's the verified version of it. And we have the PWD, which is the variable, right, that holds the instance of this class, which is used for both the hashing and the verification, right? So I could just say PWD dot verify. And of course, this man takes in two things, right? The verification takes in two things. So the first thing it takes is the plain password or the one that we want to actually compare with. If that plain one is equivalent to the hashed one, right? So it takes in both the plain password and the hashed password. Right, so here our passing our password being the plain one. So I'm assuming that the user has now come in to log in again, right? So you want to put in his plain password. Now I can just carry that password alongside with what and verify with the hash version. So we just say db underscore saved, right? So I'll compare if this plain password is equivalent to that hashed one. If it's equivalent, of course, this function has a means of doing some mathematical things behind the scene for that comparison, right? So it will know if what you're typing is equivalent to what was hashed, right? So if it's the same, then this one tells you true or false, right? So it doesn't. So like I said, there's no means of bringing back this hash one. So this one can only tell you true or false if it's equivalent or not, but we cannot bring back that hash version to the plain password, right? So let's go back and let's print this one. So if I come here and I print the verified password, right? Verified PWD, this should not tell me either true or false. So if I run this now, I have what I have true. So you can see that in order for us to actually log in, we somehow need to remember the plain one, because without the plain one, and without the plain one, there is no means of getting it back, or you just go and create a new account, because what is hashed can never be unhashed, right? So what is this man here, what is permanent, right? It's a permanent something, right? You cannot bring it back to its previous state, right? So that's basically the two important functions that we use in password hashing, right? So the library is what is parslib, right? The widely used algorithm is what is bcrypt, right? So you install both of them at together, right? And then you do what you invoke that class that does the hashing, which is what crypt context. And this class takes in the algorithm. So you can use more than one algorithm at a time. It's your choice, right? It's your choice. But whatever algorithm you are using, you have to make sure that it is installed, right? So you can use both, and then you hash them, right? And then after that, you can simply use either the hash function or the verify function to hash and verify. All right. Okay, so Fidelis, your hand is up, right? So go ahead and ask me.
I wanted to ask, why is the bcrypt showing on your terminal attribute error?
Yeah, it's showing like an output error for some reason. I have cannot think of why now. So it's not something that is specific to us. It's I think this problem is coming from the library itself. So it's coming from the library itself. So I've noticed this, I think, in previous code like that, and yeah, I think it's something that relates to them. So the same model bicrypt has the attribute about. So we haven't used these attributes, right? But we've used the bicrypt algorithm. So I think this problem here is the algorithm dependent issue. It's not really from our end. It's not really from our end. So
All right.
it's not from our end. So you can see that it's from the library itself, because all libraries it's always saved inside packages. So it's from them. I'm not sure it's from us, but
Nice.
it works. It works regardless. So this one is, I think, it's more like a minor issue. But I also think that if you should maybe install an older version of this man, it may work. Remember, every installation comes with their version. So if I do pay again, see that everything comes with their version. Like the parenting here, we have 2.11.7. So I'm sure that if you also go to bicrypt, maybe try installing something lower, let's say 3.5, right? I'm not sure. I'm not assuming. And maybe that error should be cleaned, because I'm not sure that error is always there. Probably is due to maybe the current update that caused that particular bug there. But I won't really call that a bug, because it has nothing to do with the functionality of that library, right? So I'm not really, I won't really worry much
All
about
right.
it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other question before Mr. Barry now asks his questions? Any other question pertaining to password hashing and the rest of them? All right, so the silence means no other question. Mr. Barry, please go ahead and shoot your question. Are you still with us?
So I'm serious.
All right.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, like the question I wanted to ask, I've already asked it on the group before, but I just needed some confirmation from you. So I will drop the screenshot of what of the error it was showing on the chat. Then you just check it out for me. Let me drop
Oh,
it.
all right. So go ahead and drop it. Then you go back and we look at that. All right. Okay, so let's go now. While Mr. Barry is gonna drop that on the chat for us, let's go ahead and let's move this man from our plain Python. Let's see how we can involve this man in fast API. So as usual, I'll just copy this man, right? So we've seen we're already familiar with the whole process. So I'll copy it. I just go and paste, right? So I'll go up here and I will import it down up there, and I'll create the context down there, right? I'll create the context down here. All right, and after that, we can start using that basically. Oh, so where do we want to hash? We want to hash at registration, right? And then we want to verify at login, Abi. that is the most appropriate places to use the hash at sign up and verify at login, right? So I'll come back here again and I want to hash. So I'll copy this man. And I'll go back to my dev and sec. So after okay, we've checked for if email is already existent, then erase an error saying account that email already exists. Else it will just go ahead and install. So this password that I want to install here is sorry, this password that I want to save here is not the plain password, right? I want to save the hash version of it. So basically password db.hash, and what I want to hash is the detail.password, right? So I'll cut this man and I'll paste it there, and then I can verify and login. So I'll go back to login again. All right, so if email in DB, okay, so okay, login here, sorry, login. All right, so before we even get to this point, we want to collect the password, right, and check. All right, so basically, if email in DB, and so this will be like a two condition, right? So both condition needs to be true. So it means that the email needs to be available in database, and also the password, and also I would say verify. So this should be verified. Let's copy verify. Let's see. I'm looking at how to place that condition properly. So here you want to verify the password that is sent alongside what we have in the database, right? So let's go back and let's see. So deep and sec, and so I want to verify detailed password, right? So detail.password and detailed password. Right. So I think there's a problem with this our login. If you look at it, I don't know if you guys are seeing it, but I feel that there is a problem with our login, and the problem says that the problem that I'm seeing, right, is that we are basically just checking if email in password, right? So if there's email in password, then one we want to hash that email and then send the token, right? That was fine for token generation. But then we also want to send this token if the email and password is correct, right? We don't just want to hash and then send it out. All right, so let's see. All right, so let's see what we can do. All right, so this is what I will do again, right? So I'll clean this man out, right? And this condition here will stay. Right, so after checking if you are there in the database, right, I want to go ahead and just fetch you, right? So I'll come here and then I'll just say user equals to user equals to db, and I want to fetch detailed email, right? So once I fetch that, then of course, looking at how we structured our man. So basically, if I fetch this, I'll get all this, right? So to get that password now, I would simply just say, don't worry, I will explain. I'll explain better. All right, don't worry, y'all give me a few minutes. I'll explain better. Let me just structure this. I know some people are like, "What is this we're doing?" Right, but just hold on, please. Let me just structure it, right? And then I'll come back and I'll explain what is happening. Okay, so if I should fetch this user now, I can just get that man there, right? So now I can now come again and just say if this man now, right? So after fetching that man up there, I can just say if password dot if I'm verified that the email the data the dot password, because password is coming in as well, right? That if the detail of password is equivalent to the user, then in square bracket password, right? In square brackets password, right? If both of them are the same, then I want to go ahead and do this, all right? Then else, I just give the else for that if there, right? For that inner if, and then here I will just raise HTTP exception that says incorrect password, right? Incorrect password. All right, so let me explain that. All right, incorrect password. So this would be incorrect password. Incorrect password. All right, so let's do the explanation proper, right? Let's do the explanation proper. But before we continue, let me look at what Barry said. Then we'll come back and explain that code. All right. Let me see. Barry. All right. Please hold on, guys. Let me just let's clear up this previous question before we proceed. Right. Let's clear up the previous question. Barry, your images are taking time to load. Okay. Email is still picture is still taking time to load. All right, so I think it's coming up now. It's coming up now. So you say you're trying to use Ubicon to create a link. Okay, let me see what you have. Oh boy, it's not still coming up, but okay, I think we're up and running now. All right, so it says that Fast API get is missing one positional argument. The Fast API.get is missing one positional argument called path. All right, so let me see your code itself. Called path app.get. All right, so let me see your code again. All right, please hold on, guys. Let's verify. Let's clear Barry, so we don't have to. All right, I think it's coming up now. Okay. For some reason I cannot really zoom, but let's see. Okay, so I think I can zoom. Let's see. Hold on. Okay. Oh, good. This is lagging. Please hold on. Just hold on. Ah, this is lagging. Yay. Oh, all right. Please, just hold on. For some reason, it's okay. All right. So let's see what we have here. He says that it's missing one positional argument. Well, that doesn't look like it's missing any positional argument. Let me look at your code again. All right, let me see. Where is the other file? Please hold on, guys. Please, let me just look at what Barry's have. It's missing type error line 8. Well, your code looks correct. Is correct, but for some reason you're having an error which you should not have. Hold on, let's see something.
Actually, someone says because I didn't save the file in VS Code.
Did you save is your VS Code on autosave? Let me look
It's
at that.
not. Maybe that should be the problem. Because
Oh,
Mary Jane.
Yeah. So if you look at what you have, let me see if I can draw something there. So if you look at this thing, once your file is shining like this, where is it? Oh, sorry. I'm trying to draw something on that place. Okay, let me just use my VS Code and show you something. Now look at your that picture that you sent. You get. Let me take off my listing from autosave. Let me show you something. All right. So now let's look at. Have you seen this X on my file up there, right? You've seen that X there on my file up there, right? Now let's say I edit this file. You can say that that X is not showing again. It's showing one big dot.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is the same thing that is showing on your file there as well. So it means that changes has been done on this file, but this file is not saved, right? So it means I have to somehow do Control S for that current changes to be saved, right? So most time these things skips our head. That is why I always recommend that what put your VS Code on auto save, right? So you don't have to actually worry about if you've made changes or not, right? Once there's any change, VS Code will automatically save that file, right? Please go.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
I'll go and try it out with the laptop.
Yeah. Please. Once you do that, your predicament is solved. All right. So let's go back and let's continue our code. Okay. Let's continue what we're doing. All right. So looking at what we've done so far, it looks magical. All right. But I'm just basically continuing from where we stopped in our previous code. So in our previous code, we did some sign up and login functionality, right? And so far we've not yet covered database. So we use dictionary as database. So if you scroll up, you see dictionary, you see this man. Yeah, this is the man that we use as database. And if you look at the way data is being saved in this dictionary, is saved as a dictionary. So that dictionary what is containing dictionary as value. So what do I mean? Let's go to our main listing. Let's do some some I can clean this up, right? Or maybe I can comment on this. So let's do some practical and see what is really happening. So you have a database called DB, right? Equals to what? A dictionary, Abi. And the way information is being saved to that dictionary is like this. So let me go and copy how it's being saved so that we are following, right? So this is how items is being added to that dictionary. So how do we add something to a dictionary? If you could remember, is what you reference that dictionary name, right? So the dictionary name, right? And then in square brackets the new key. Remember, in dictionary item comes in pairs, key and value, right? So the new key comes here, followed by what? Followed by the new value, right? The new value. Of course, this value can be of any data type. It can be of int, it can be of string, it can even be of dict again, right? So keep that in mind. So basically, that is how you add items to dictionary, right? And that's basically what we did down here, right? But here we now said about here we now said that let me tap this in. So here we now said that the new key here is the new user email, right? So basically the email is what we are assuming as key, right? So this detail.email here is basically the user email. So I'll come here and say email one, assuming that user typed in email one, right, as his email, and the name here would now be name one. So I've got this, and assuming that user typed in name one as their name, right? And of course, the hash password. So that's context, right? That hash. So let's just use this. Let's comment this man and let's use it. So we'll come here and I'll leave this man open. I'll leave the other man to open, and I will leave this other man to open. All right. So, okay. So here, let's wait the hash. All right. So, okay, that's basically all we did. So here, assuming that the password here is what is hash is password one, right? So I'll call this password one. Right. So assuming that is the user details, the email is email one, the name is name one, the password is password one. So this is how we save this information to that database, right? So basically, we are adding the key here is what is the email, where the value is another dictionary or that contains name and what and password, right? That's basically how this thing is being added. So I can duplicate this for multiple times so that we see how this I'll call this password 2, right? Now, if I execute this file now, I can see the Where are we? All right, so that has been, let's go ahead, let's print our dictionary, right? Let's print our dictionary, right? Let's print our dictionary, right? So after that has been added. So if I run this again, and we get our dictionary right there. Right, so this is our dictionary. So this is one single value in the dictionary, right? That is one single value, right? Where the key is email one, the item and the value is what, and the value is another dictionary that contains what, that contains name and password. Same thing happening. This is another value in that dictionary that contains what, where the key what is email two, and then what is name two, and that is his own hash password. Do you understand up to this point? Please, let's confirm that we understand up to that point before we proceed. Are we following? Do you understand up to that point?
Yeah.
All right. So let's continue now. All right, now this is basically what is happening in the registration point, right? This is what is happening in the registration point. Now let's see what is happening in the login section, right? In the login section, let's see what's happening in that login section. So let's go to login section and let's see what is happening. So now the login section here says that basically we don't want to we basically do not want any random email, right, to come to our login point, right, and put any random email there and get password, right? So that's basically what this face if here is doing, right? That's basically what this face if here is what it's doing. So let's go back and let's see how that will look like. So if I go back to our new again, right, and I'll leave this man as it is, and then I will still come here and I'll put some empty prints, right? I'll put some empty print there, right, for spacing, and then let's put that if. So the if here says that, well, let's just copy it so that it doesn't look like we are doing something different, right? So let's copy this man. Let's take this man here. All right. So here the first if here says that what that basically we don't want any random mail to do what, to just come to our login and get what, and get token. So now what do we now do? We now check that what, we now collect that user email, which in this case it could be email one, right? And then check if email one in DB, right? Then we want to do what, we want to at some point at the first point, right? So I say at the beginning, this was just to do what, generate token and send it, right? That was the first logic, right, as it was, and then else would now be a problem saying print that says no no user or no account with that email, right? That was the first logic that we have on ground. So if I execute this now, this should now show us generate the token and send it, right? So this is what we wanted, right? So so that means that no random email, so we'll have like one can just come in and get the token, right? That was the whole point. So here he said that there is no account with that. Let me hide this thing again. There is no account with that particular email, which was our first problem, which we tackled just fine, right? I believe we understand up to this point. Before we now look at the last point now, right? We understand up to this point where we prevented any random email from getting token, right? So the only emails that can get token were the emails that we have available in our database, which in this case, that email must have signed up, right? So this is sign up here. So this is, I'll call this sign up. So far, this is the only email that have signed up in our page, which is what, email one and email two. So that means those are the only two email that will always get token, right? Please just communicate. So I know that we are following.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Yes, we understand up to that point. Okay, now let's proceed again. Let's proceed again. So now coming today again. Now we now saw that there is need to also take password into account. If not, someone can just come in there, right? Put in a correct email, right? But then put in a wrong password, right? And we don't want that, right? And we don't want that. Normally, right? Normally, what we would have done is like probably come here and also check that and That make sure that the email is in our database, and the password that the person has typed in, which in this case I'll call this typed password, right? Typed password is also available in the database. But we can not also say typed password in DB, right? This will not work, right? So we can't do for password the same way we did for email, because the thing is that once you use the in keyword to check something in a dictionary, it checks if that thing is a key, right? That's how a in works with dictionary. So unlike list and array, if you use in, it checks if that actual value is there in that list or array. But since list or tuple, right? But since dictionary comes in pairs, key and value, was used in, the int only checks if that particular item is a key in that dictionary. So basically, if I should say if email one in DB, and I'm simply saying, is there any key in that dictionary that is called email one, which in this case is we don't have it, right? And also and also saying that if there's also another key called typed password, which in this case we don't also have it, right? So in this case, this first in is correct, right? Because here we are checking for email, which the keys are basically email, but the password is not a key, right? So we cannot also use in with password as it is. Victor, please go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Good morning, boss.
Good morning, sir.
Please, can you re-explain this place now? I don't really get it.
Wait, this in logic here, right?
Yes, from that from that DP.
Up.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
from here. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so if you look at the code that we have previously, right? In our first API here, right? We have two routes, right? Two important routes, which is the register route and the login route. Okay. And normally, when someone should register in your site, you are somehow expected to save that person's details in your database or in your file. Anyhow, you want to do save it, right? But as of that previous class, we did not actually cover database, and we could not also option in for file. So the quickest way of showing that illustration was using a data structure in Python, right? And given the fact that each user that is registering is coming in with a structured data. So what do I mean? Each user is coming in with three valid data, which is what their name, their email, and their password. So the most convenient data structure that will group all those things as one value is dictionary. If not, easier is dictionary, right? But then if you consider other structure, it will be difficult to work with that with this kind of information. So that's why we option in for dictionary, right? So we now say, okay, fine. In the absence of file or database, let us save this user's detail in a dictionary, right? A normal dictionary that we did back then in the beginning of this bootcamp, right? So and then we now created a dictionary up here, which is what we call here, and we call it DB, right? So the DB is basically a plain dictionary that saves things only when the program is running, but when the program is closed, everything is gone, right? So we accepted that fate, all right, and then we proceed with it, right? And then we also know that in a dictionary, right, that dictionary saves things in pairs, right? So I cannot just dump the data there. It has to come in pairs, right? And then I have three data that's coming in at once: name, email, and password. I can't just pack the two of them and dump. If I dump it, then each of them would be considered as one single data, right? Which I don't want that. Which normally it should not even be so. All of them should be seen as one single data. So that if I want to retrieve all of them at once, I can just simply one retrieving, and I'll get all of them all at once instead of getting them separately one after the other. So in that case, we now say, okay, fine, let this data also be saved as dictionary, right? Because remember, each dictionary item comes in pair, in key and in value. So we now say, okay, out of these three data, name, name, email, and password, right? Let us use email as key. Then carry name and password, bundle it in another dictionary and save it as what? As value, which is what we have here. Which is what we have here, right? So we use the email as key, right? And then with the value here is what is another dictionary, right? Do you understand up to that point, Mr. Victor? Is Mr. Victor still with us? Sorry, I had to. Is Mr. Victor still with us? But he has questions of me, Ron. All right,
Yes,
so
yes, I understand. Continue.
okay. All right. So now, after that has been established now, so we now say, okay, let us go and replicate that same process in our Python script. So we went to our Python script, right? And then we replicated that process of signing up. So this is a one user account, and this is the second user account, right? Where the email is the key and the value is another dictionary, right? Same thing happens here. The email is the key and the value is another dictionary, right? So now if I should now execute this code, we now see how these things is being saved in the dictionary. So if I carry this man up, because this somehow this floating stuff is still blocking me. Right. So now this is now the dictionary, right? And this is one single key in that dictionary, right? This is one single value rather in that dictionary, right? Where the email here is the key and this man here is the value for that particular key. Same thing happens here, another value where the email 2 here is the key and another dictionary as the value for email 2, right? So we just automated that process, right, in our script, which is basically what is happening in the sign up. Now the problem was what was the login, which is what we now have down here. So this is now the login automation, right? The login automation. Now we want to automate the process of logging in, right? We want to automate that process of logging in. Okay, so let's see. Now let's go ahead and let's see how login was expected to work, right? So to log in, right, we have two things in mind. The first thing, the very first thing was to make sure that whoever is logging in should be someone that has email in our database, which in this case, what our dictionary, right? Which in this case, our dictionary there, right? So as far as you have email, you can do what? You can log in. So by logging in Fast API, what do you mean? You mean that we can give you what? A token, right? And then we now came up with this logic that says if the email, right? If the email that's being typed in is available in the dictionary, right? We know that once we use the in keyword, right? The in keyword tells us true or false, right? Depending if the value that you want to check is available in that structure. So now if you if you check a value in a dictionary structure, it only makes that comparison with the dictionary keys. Are you following up to that point? Comparison in a dictionary structure, right, only makes the comparison in the keys, right? So the value is not really compared, right? So if I say a value in dictionary, it means check if this value is available among the keys in that dictionary. I believe you understand up to that point, Mr. Victor, and the rest of us.
Yes.
All right, fantastic. So now this was our what? This was our first logic before we close for the previous class. So if I should execute this now, of course, we should have that there is no account with that email. So this is what we have, no account with that email. Because if you look at our dictionary or our database, the only two keys that we have available with what is email 1 and email 2. So it means any other keys outside those two is invalid or is considered as what an account not available in the database. So if I should come back here and insert, right, an available email, then of course I should not see the point where I can generate the token and do what and send it. So this only happens when the email that has been typed in is is a correct email, or is an email that is a key in a dictionary or in our database, right? In this case. Okay, and that was perfectly fine. Not until this morning, or not until this particular class. Okay, Mr. Felelis, you have a question?
To ask if we are only checking for email, what if maybe there is a username and you want to check, let's say there's the pop-up question should be put in your email or username. Now you have to check for email or username at the same time. How are we going to go about it?
All right, so that is another point of view where email or username can be used for authentication, right? It is very possible, right? It is very possible. It is very possible. It is very possible, right? That both can be used for means of identification. So that means that whoever is signing up, the email and the username needs to be unique, right? So that means that both your username and email cannot repeat, or that the data cannot already exist in the database. Which we'll come back and look at how we can do that. That's another point of view that we can also consider, right? We'll come back and we'll look at that. But for now, let's focus on email and password authentication. If you can understand this one, then to go back and use both email or password, or username would be a very simple and straightforward something, right? So let's understand how password can now come into this particular authentication now, right? Then we go back and we'll solve that particular situation. Is that okay? All right, so let's proceed. Okay, so this was the logic that we have previously in our previous class, and it was going just fine. It was very fantastic, right? Not until this morning where password was now a thing, where we now have to think about someone now coming here, right? Someone can come in here and put in a correct email, but put in a wrong password. In this case, we can still generate the password, which is not what we want, right? So we want that both the email and the password should be correct. So, but then if you look at the way this data is being structured in that dictionary, right? To make comparison, right? To make comparison with password, right? Password is somehow available in a dictionary that lives inside a dictionary in the database. I don't know if that makes sense, right? This password here that we intend to use for this comparison is living in this dictionary, right? And which this whole dictionary here now lives in the database dictionary. Make sense? So now we have to somehow filter down to that password, right? So yeah, I think it's similar to, I think we did something like this back then when we're doing this basic of Python, right? Where we have nested dictionary and we have to filter down something, right? So same thing happens here again. So now let's see how we can do that, right? So one way is that we can come here and we can add and, right? We can come here and add and, right? So in this situation here, it means that both the password and the email needs to be correct or needs to be available in that database. But then how do we now make comparison with this password that is available in that database, given how we structure this dictionary, right? Given how that dictionary is being structured, how do we now work with that? So, well, let's see. Let's basically see, right? Let's basically see. Let's see what is happening. Right. So before we come down here, let's print something, right? Let's just print something. So let's assume that I want to get this password that's inside here. How do I do that? So if I should, if I should come here and then I say print, and what do I want to print? I want to print a particular key, right? So now if I should say DB and then in square bracket email one, right? I will get the inner dictionary, right? So basically, I'll get this one, right? I'll get this inner dictionary that lives inside there, right? Now I can then further. Sorry. I wanted to close that terminal, and I mistakenly closed my VS Code. Sorry. So let's open it back up again. So come here, open it again. Sorry about that. Sorry. These things happen. These things happen. All right. So, okay. So let's proceed. Okay. So, All right. So with this, right, we simply get what the value of that key, right, which is also what a dictionary. So it means that I can further come here and add another square bracket to now further filter in what we have within what that inner dictionary, which in this case, if I should say bring up password, right, this should then get me the password rule, right, the password record, which in this case is the hash version of this password, right. So if I run this again, I should now have that available. So you can see that I was able to sync down to get the hash version of that password, which is basically what we want to do in our condition, right? Now we have to do this based on how this data is being structured, right? So this part of filtering, you know what, we'll get the value of that email, right? Of this key, right? It will get the value of this key called email one. So the value of this email one is what is this dictionary here. So this is the value of email one. So being that value is also what is also a dictionary, I can simply filter again saying get the password that's available in that dictionary. So in this case, I cannot add here password, right? And then I'll get this item there, right? So that's basically what is happening. So let's go back and let's implement that. So if I should comment this man out, right? And then I could come here and say, and basically what I want to get now is what I want to get the DB. So basically I'll copy this man. So basically I will copy this man and I'll paste it here. So here I would say that that if the password that's available in this man is the same, so here I have to use the verify, right? The PD verify, right? So I want to verify. So here I could say here I could just cut this man. I would say pwd dot context dot verify, right? Here I want to pass in what the plain password, which in this case the plain password here is I could just say password. So let's assume that I put in a wrong password. So I could say password and without putting the one, right? And I want to compare this with what we have in the hash section, right? And if it's, so remember, and means that both sides needs to be true. So that means even if I type in a correct email, if I put in the wrong password, I cannot get this man, right? But then if I execute this again, let's see what is happening. So you will see why I had to. So you can see that I now have accounts with that email, no accounts with that email, right? But the case is not really accounts with the email. The case is because I put the wrong password. So that was why I did not join this to condition. I not join this as one single conditional statement, so that I can always show the appropriate error message. So if it's from email, I can just show you from email. If it's from password, I can just say that it's from password. So that's why I caught this man and I did this, right? And then I now came down here and then I did another if, and then I now pasted that man there, right? So here I could now consider, I can now come here now, right? And then I could just say else, right? And here I could just print the appropriate one. I say incorrect password, right? So here I could say print incorrect password, right? So this other if, right, is for database, which this else catches, right? And this other if is for password, which is other one now, which is else now catches, right? And at the end of it all, to get this token, one has to have an incorrect, a correct email and a correct password, right? So if I should go back again and execute this code, and this should now show the appropriate message saying what incorrect password, right? So if I should go back and then type in the correct password, which in this case the correct password is password one, right? So password one, and I go back again and I execute this man, I should now have a token generated, right? So generate token and do what and send it. So that's basically what we have to do in that login route. Right? Question. Yeah, if I should do this, Barry, right? If I should use or instead of and, it will still evaluate towards to one expression, which I only have one else, right? So which I only have this else always executing for either password or except it says you want to come here and add or incorrect, right? Or incorrect, which is vague in a sense that if you tell me that either my email or password is incorrect, it's complicated because I can't really tell which is the problem. Is it my password or my email? So that means I have to start to think for both email and password. So that is why I had to break it down into two different into nested conditional statement, because this is the whole point of nesting, to be able to do what, to have multiple connections, right? Or should I say multiple actions for each of them, right? So that's basically why we cannot use or there, right? That's basically why I cannot use or. So is there question pertaining to this login logic? So let's go and let's see how we can fix it out. Question pertaining to the login logic. Question pertaining to login logic. All right. So there's no question pertaining to login logic. Well, normally I would say I'll leave it for us to go and copy and insert it there. But most of us will not do it. So let's just go and wrap it up real quick, and so we can wrap it up. All right. So let's go back again to our login, and let's see. So that's basically what is happening here. So we check if the email is in the database, right? If it's there, right? I just simply so instead of doing this multiple times so instead of doing this, right? Instead of me doing this, right? In fast API, right? I simply brought in a variable called user, right? And then I now copy this man like this and paste it there, right? And still brought in the user here again, which is the same thing, right? Which is still the same thing, right? So this user is the same thing as this thing here. So this user is the same thing as me copying this man and pasting it there, right? So that's what is happening here, right? So I did the user here, and then I still use the user down here, right? So like I said, there's no route in programming, right? Now how you feel I'm with just on that they go. Okay, so that's basically what I did here, and then we now finally created the payload, and then we now encode, and then we now send it out, right? And then we now raise for wrong password, and we now raise for wrong email. So that's basically that for login. Question before we proceed. Question. All right, so the silence means there is no question. Fantastic. Silence means there's no question. All right, so let's look at what we have for today's class, which is a middleware course and bigger application. So, like I said, all these concepts are very simple concepts that can just be done in 2 minutes, right? In 2 minutes. So the whole point what is understanding when to use this concept, right? Is when to use this concept. So let's look at the first concept of middleware. So I will not create another file again, right? So I will only create another file probably once we go to the bigger application, so that I don't have to be creating file up and down, right? So let us please let's know that what that CORS and middleware is here, right? So just get how this concept works, right? It's not a big concept, right? It's a very simple concept, and most of them is a concept that, of course, it's not as if your program cannot function effectively without them, right? They can function effectively without them, right? But okay, that's for middleware. But I think for CORS, most of the time your project cannot function without cross origin resource configuration, right? So, but let's start with middleware. Let's start with middleware, right? So middleware, okay, from the name middleware, is a middleman. Right? This man there is a middleman. So basically, middleware in fast API, right, is a function, right, that processes every incoming request before it arrives at a specific path, and also every response before it's being returned to the client. Now, why we call them middleware, in just there for the middle of everything, right? So let me just type it down here for the purpose of note taking. Okay, so middleware, right? Middleware in fast API is a function, right, that processes every incoming request, before it arrives at a specific route, and every response, and every response before it's returned to the client, before it is returned to the client. All right, so that is basically what middleware is, right? It's basically a function that executes for every incoming request and also execute again for every outgoing response. But then you be thinking, what's the difference between this middleware and dependency, right? So the difference is that your middleware will execute first before your dependency, right? So your dependency gets to execute when the request is coming to that part, right? So so before a request even find a way among all your parts to arrive at a particular part that is depending on a dependency. That request passes through what? A middleware. Right? So that middleware can choose to do anything with that request and then finally arrives at a specific part. So if that part is now depending on a dependency, right? So that request is now passed to that dependency, and then from there to the part. And also another difference is that middleware also process again every request that is coming back again. So everything that comes in and goes out, the middleware is aware of it, right? But all the dependency that processes basically everything that comes, just what comes in, right? But doesn't actually process what goes out. But for a middleware, it does both, right? It does both. It does both the coming in and the going out. And you may be wondering, where do I use this middleware, or of what use does it use it to your application? So, like I said, of course, your application can function effectively with or without this middleware, right? But in situations like, let's say, you're logging, let's say you want to keep track of how long it takes for your route or for a request to be processed in your server, maybe just for logging sake, right? Who knows? Anything, like you can basically do anything, but basically anything that you need to do before and after a request, the middleware is your guy, right? Middleware is your guy. It's due as the developer that then knows what kind of thing do I need to be doing before and after of every request. So I've just given you one instance, assuming you want to do what to keep track of how long it takes for your server to process a request. So it can be useful, especially if you're planning on optimizing your server over time, so that these responses can be quicker. Then you may likely need to do what to keep track of how long a request comes in and how long it took for that request to do what to go back out again. All right. So the sequence is basically as follows. So how does this sequence work? So the sequence is this. So the sequence is that first of all, it receives, right? It receives the request, right? The incoming, right? The incoming request, right? And then perform any action on the request if needed, right? So this one is basically up to you if needed, right? And then at the end of it all, it will now pass this request, or passes the request to the corresponding, let's say to the appropriate, or to the specified, to the specified route, right? Using a special function. A special function called CORS, right? CORS. So the CORS function lives within what? It should be available within your middleware function. If not, the request will end up not being passed to the appropriate route, right? So it just gets stuck at your middleware, right? So we need this function to do what? To pass that request, because this function is what knows which route is what that request supposed to do what to go to. So that function is responsible for doing that, right? So it's built in the first API, right? And that is its job. His job is to carry that request and go to the appropriate route. And then after that, he receives again. He receives, right, the response, right, the response from the route. So that means that this function have passed that request onto the route, and the route have finished everything, and the router have sent that response. Now, when the router sends the response, this man takes that response again. Right. So it takes the response from the route function, right? And then perform action on the response if needed again. So I'll copy this man again and paste it here. So this one, it performs any action on this one will be on the response if needed. And then finally returns the modified response. So after that, return the response, or the modified. That's if it's being modified, right? The modified response to the client. That is the sequence of operation for fast for middlewares, right? So let's see how middlewares is being created, right? So how do we create middleware? So it's simple. There is no big big thing about middlewares. It's very simple. They're just functions. Like I said, they are functions that execute. So that means if I should just create a function, and let's say I just come here and create a function, right? And I create a function. I'll call this function. Sorry, def. I'll call this function middle func, right? And it takes nothing, right? This one takes nothing. Basically, I would just this function is supposed to do what? Remember, the first part is what is to receive. So by default, this man will do what will receive. So the next thing what is to do what is to process, right? Is to process. So I will come here, and if need be, I will perform any action on that request that is being received. So I could just say maybe for now I can just say print request received, right? And then after that, I have to do what? I have to call in the core next function, right? The special function called core next, right? And of course, I will expect the response from it. So I will assign this to a variable called response, right? So this response is what is basically whatever this core next are sent to. So I'll bring the core next. So call underscore next. Call underscore next. And then this man takes in a request. We come back and we fix that. And here I could just basically do anything again. So here I could just perform any action on the response if needed, right? So here I could just perform any action here if needed. And then at the end of it all, so here I could just say maybe for now I could just say response received, right? And here I could just come here now, and then at the end of it all, I have to do what? I have to return that response. Return that response. So the response here is the one that that is coming from, and that's after we modified, and then we can just send it out. All right, so that's basically what we want. So that's basically the structure of a middleware, right? Of a middleware function. But then remember, if we leave this function as it is, then it is seen as what it is seen as our normal function, right? And the core next here will just be seen as normal, like maybe a function somewhere that we intend to do what to create. So now what do we do? Or what makes this function to standard? Or what makes this function to standard? So what makes this function to standard is that it takes three things, right? So it takes requests. So that means you have to import requests from Fast API. So I have to go back to Fast API, where is it? And import request. So request is necessary because this is the man that handles that basically handles all the requests that comes into your Fast API, right? This is the library that the model that handle that. So we have to somehow bring that man in and manipulate it here in our function, right? So I would just typecast this. I'll call this request, right? With a type of what of request, right? All right, sorry about that. So I'll call this a type of request. I'll call this request, right? And I'll bring in the call next, right? So the call underscore next. All right, so the call next is a special function, right? So once you put this call next, and Fast API knows that is a special function that needs to be included in this function, right? That needs to be included in that function, and that's basically all about creating. Okay, one more thing is that you need to also let Fast API know that this function is a middleware function by doing what, by giving it a function decorator similar to what we have in our endpoint, right? So simply come here and then we have app, and then we say app dot. Now what we want to give here is what is middleware, right? Dot middleware, right? The app, sorry, this should be app dot middleware, right? Middleware, and this man takes in a string called HTTP, right? HTTP, right? And that is all. So with this declaration, right, with this now tells Fast API that, oh, this function here should be seen as what should be seen as a middleware function, and should have the capacity of receiving requests alongside with the call next function, right? And then whatever, and then certain things can be done to that request, and then certain things too can be done to this response. So it's just that simple, right? It's just that simple. So with that, we've created a middleware function, and then whatever you need to do to this request before it gets passed to the response can be done before this call, right? So everything that comes before that call is something that should happen before what the request is being passed, and everything that happens after that call up till the return statement is what should happen after that response has been received. And then at the end of it all, it was we send out the final response to the client. So it's just that simple, right? It's just that simple. Yeah, but it's simple now. It's just that simple. All right. Okay, so that's basically the job of middleware, right? It's of course it stays in the middle, right? It stays in the middle. It stays in the middle, and it does what it does. It does what it knows how to do best. So like I said, your function, of course, your Fast API can work without them. That if you don't see need for doing anything before and after a request and response, then you are good to go. But if there is need, which I cited one example, like server login, right? To see how long it takes for your server to process a response. Then middleware is the guide, because there's no other function that will fire after a response has sent. Once the response is sent out, nothing fires again. But middleware is the guy that can fire even after a response has been sent out, right? So in that situation, of course, you need middleware. So let's test this out, and then you see that once we make a request, this function should execute, right? So I should see this man and this man, right? And of course, I should then finally see whatever was available in that route. So let's test one route. Let's test out this. I'm looking for a very simple route. We don't have a simple route. Let's create one simple route, please. Okay, so we have user reg. Okay, we have user reg here. Okay, so we work with that route. So let's go back and let's run our server. All right, so uvcon, and we have the file name here is what is dip and sick, and then on app. All right, so let's go ahead and let's test. So to test, I'll test this man, and this man has no dependency, but we should somehow see these things in the terminal, right? Because this functions are functions that will fire for all the requests, right? There's no request that comes in the middleware will not fire up. The middleware will fire up, right? So for all your requests, whether it relates to it or not, it must fire, because by default that is how that function should be. It should accept every request and accept every response. So if I should paste in our route here, right, and send this request, All right, I should not see internals. All right, so let's go and see the problem with what we have. Let's say the only was, oh, sorry, yeah. The function is missing the request, right? So the request needs to be sent to that member. The request needs to be passed. So when we collect this request, right, we have to pass it to what to the appropriate route, right? So you have to come here and I'll pass in this request to this man, right? So that man, so here it means do everything to that request, and then at the end of it, all do what, pass that request using the call next function, right? And the response is saved to this variable, right? And then do everything I want to do with this response, and then at the end of it all, set out that response. So we skip that step. All right, so let's go back again and let's refresh our server, right? And then let's fire up again. All right, so we have the request has been sent successfully, right? And if I should go to my man, we have request received, request response received as well, and that happened because of the middleware. So this print is coming from where? It's coming from the middleware, right? So that's basically how middleware works, and of course a lot of things can happen, right? If you want to basically, you can even print this request, right? If you want to see what is in this request library or in that request variable there, I can print this request so that you will see, right? And then I can even print this response if you want. So I also see what is happening here. So this response is similar to basically what is coming from our route, and this one is what is coming in. So let's go back and let's test. So you can do a lot of things. You can manipulate, right? You can manipulate things here. You can manipulate things there, right? You can if you see need for it. So if I send this man again, you should now see how that request update looks like. All right, so it looks well, it's not basically showing properly. Okay. All right, let's do like this, right? Let's do like this. Let's see if we can. Okay, let's do like this. Okay, let's calculate how long it takes for our server to manipulate this. So this man is showing us where the location in which the request object is, and the response object is also being saved, right? So I'm sure that this response, if I should say response.json, I should somehow see the JSON form of it, because remember the response is coming in as JSON. I'm sure it's going out as JSON. I'm assuming. So I have to somehow do I need to bring that man out? I'm not sure. But let's see. Right, so it's not really showing us the detail of that man. So it's just showing us where it's being saved. Right, so it's just showing us where it's being. So we have a problem. All right, so the problem here is that we are here that man. So request has no attribute just. All right, let's see. Hold on, guys. Let's see. Hold on. All right. Hey. Let's see. Let's see. Well, the thing is that I'm not sure that we can, but let's do something first. Let's say request dot. Okay, so these are the things that we can basically get from this request. So these are the request properties that we can only get from that request. You can see the request headers. You can get the header section of it. You can get the body. You can get the cookies and so on and so forth. The item, the JSON, the keys, and so on. So those are the only things that we can get from that request. And of course, response. if you also print response, you could also see that if I say okay, let's see response. Response is not really giving out anything much. It's not really giving us anything much. Let's see. The response is not really giving us anything. Okay, nothing is really coming up much on that. All right, but let's see how we can calculate server time, like how long it takes to process a request. Nothing is coming up much on those objects there, on the response and the request. Nothing much is really coming up there. But basically, like I say, basically everything lives and before and after what they call a function. So everything lives before and after this call next function, right? This call next function. That's basically how it works. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's calculate let's see how long it took for our server. Let's see if we can try to do that. Let's see how long it took for our server to wrap up things. Let's see how long it took our server to wrap up things. All right, so the data I'll bring in the time model from Python. So Python has a built-in time model. So basically what I want to do is that once a request comes in immediately, and basically before everyone starting to do anything at all, I want to execute this time. So I'll call this start time, right? So this will indicate the time our request comes in. So request dot time will invoke the current time, like this current like the current our current time in our local time zone, right? So that would be recorded there, and then before the response even is even gets sent out, then I want to get uh the process time, or should I say the end time. So after like everything before the response, I want to say end time. So I'll say end time. So end time here, I would do the same thing. I will do the same thing, but yeah, I will do the same thing. But then I want to subtract this ending time now from our start time that we have there. So this will be from start time, right? And that I can have the time difference between when this request came in and when this request was finished processing, right? That's basically, like I said, for if you see need for actually logging this kind of information, but then this works best with middleware. Right, PC, your hand is up. Excuse me, PC, your hand is up.
Sorry, Gabriel.
Yeah.
So what I want to ask is this middleware there is basically for time regulation.
If what? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think it's better now. Is it if what?
I said this middleware is basically for time regulation.
If middleware is basically for time
Regulation.
no, it's not basically for time measurement anything though, but basically one middleware is used for
Time regulation.
time regulation. No. Middleware is not really used for time regulation, right? It's basically like like I said earlier, it's basically any function that processes every incoming request before it arrives at the delivery route and everything. So basically, what middleware is used for is used if you intend to perform any action on a request before it gets to a path, and also perform any action on the response, or perform any action after the response has been before the response is being sent to the client. That's basically what middleware is used for. So you use it to perform any action before a request gets to path, and use it to perform any action before the response is sent to a client. That's basically what middleware is used for. Before path and after, and before path and before client. Middleware. So it stays in between. It does both. That's basically what middleware is used for. So I'm just giving an instance that a simple example would be, let's say we want to calculate how long it took our server to to process a particular request, of course. So that means I need to perform one action of checking the time that once the request was sent in, and also need to calculate another action of checking the time, and then subtracting it from the previous time once I'm ready for that response to be sent to the client. Make sense?
Yes, yes, I kind of understand. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's basically what middleware is used for, right? So it's those two things, right? Before and after, right? Before and after every request. All right. Fidelis, your hand is still up.
I wanted to ask, can we just make the end time should be given like a particular time, while the start time should be given a particular time? So can we just do it in a way like, let's say, the start time minus the end time will give us the time taken, something like that?
I think that's basically what we are doing here, now, right? So okay, let me change this to process time, right? Process time, right? So I think this is what is confusing us, yeah. So basically, we are subtracting when the request came in, right? Minus. So basically, we are saying once the request is done, get the current time, which is of course going to be bigger than that previous time, right? And then subtract it from the previous time, which is this one, right? So that will give us what? That will give us the time difference. Yeah. So that will give us the time difference. Then I can just print this process time out here, so we get to see, right? So or maybe I could just print it up there if I want, right? But I'll just print it down here. So print process time, right? And so if there is need now, you can just keep logging this, right? For maybe for data keeping sake and stuff like that. So it's all dependent on developer. So now let's refresh this man, and let's go back again, and let's set this man out. So if I refresh again, should somehow get the why am I having problem? Let's see. Oh, I have print with double N. There it is. Okay, so let's refresh again. All right, going back again, and then we refresh. All right, so if we go back again to my command prompt, I should somehow see the time it took to receive this man. So this man, I think this is calculated in milliseconds. So you somehow need to multiply this by, I think, let's see, I somehow need to multiply this by, hold on, let's see, let me calculate that. Let me confirm that. Just hold on. All right, so please, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, you can.
All right. Okay. And the time is in seconds, please. So that's it. So it means that it took this server about 0.00121 second to have that response processed. Right. To have that response processed. Right. So Hamid, Bankole, you added up.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Savior. So I might take you back a bit
Okay.
because I'm still struggling to understand what the middleware does, and at the same time, testing, because previous tasks that we've done, testing them were actually pretty straightforward, like to get whatever entries that we've saved in the JSON file,
Okay.
or loading them, posting, and all those, simple requests. In this case now, I've been using Postman since we started
Okay.
to test my application. How do we make use of the How do we add users? Because I think when I've been using, I started the project, but the one I'm trying to make use of a file, like JSON file instead, to save the the login user credentials, which is the username and the
Okay.
password. Yes. So how do we test this application with those users? Because I don't think we are going to add them in the URL.
No, 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 no. We will not add them in the URL. We will not
Okay.
add them. Right. So
How do we go about testing?
okay, okay. So I think we already put things in place previously in a previous class, and we tested this one out. But let's just test it out again for this
Are you
class.
using Postman?
Yes, I'm using
Okay.
Post. Let's remember, our browser is not even configured to make post requests, right? So
Yes, yes, yes.
that's
So
where
and the
post.
middleware too.
Yeah, so the middleware is just like is a standalone function, right? So the middleware is not actually tied to any route. It's unlike dependencies that is being tied to a specific route, right? The middleware is a standalone function that just executes for every request, right? For all the requests, as far as your first API lives and people keep making requests, the middleware function keep executing, right? So it's now a developer's choice if you need middleware or not, right? So if you have a specific task in mind, that this task, right, it requires that something should happen before a request arrives in a route, right? And something should also happen once before the request,
Okay.
before the response is sent to client, right? That is where you can come into
Okay.
what and use your middleware, implement those things to what to happen, right? But then if you don't have need for middleware, you can
For
actually take it
that.
off, right? But then
Okay.
have it, yeah, but then have it at the back of your mind that what that in any situation that you need something to happen before a request arrives at a path, and
Hmm.
something else should also happen before a response is sent to the client. The middleware is what you basically use, right?
So in this
That's
case
that's
now, the
that's
example
just the function
you are
of it.
given, yeah, thank you. I get it now. So the example you are trying to give with this particular middleware method we have here now is you are trying to calculate the time it's taken to process the request by the client
But
and the
eh,
response time.
exactly.
Okay, okay.
Yes, exactly. That's basically so.
Mm,
That was the example I used, right? So basically, to calculate a server response time, you have to actually know the time that request came into that server, and also know the time when that request was about to leave that server. So that means some two things needs to happen. Once the request comes in and once the request is ready to what leave, and there is no other alternative. There's no special function that can execute twice, especially when a request comes in and when a request needs to do what leaves, right? If this was like only when a request comes in, right, then dependency would have worked, right? The dependency would have just, but in this case, we also did something, another thing to also execute once the request is ready to what leave, right? And that is where middleware wins everything, right? Middleware wins everything. So basically, everything that needs to happen once a request comes in should stay before what? Before this core next function. So that's basically all this part, right? And everything that should happen once the response has been finished should happen after that core next function, right? So this is the before and this is the after. And then finally what you send out the response. So this is where this man now gets to the client finally. Is that okay? All right, so let's test this endpoint, right? So that's basically that's about middleware. There's nothing special about them. In fact, except that this is how they just behave, right? That is how middleware just behave. So in any case where you need them, of course, you can just know how to do what how to actually use them. All right, so let's test out this response. I think we since we even finished it, we never even tested it out. So let's just see if it even works. Finger, which Postman is not up already. All right. So I believe that Bankole is later, right?
yes, 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 I'm with
Right.
you.
So All right, so let's test this out. So
Yeah.
for our route, we have, where is my VS Code? Where's my VS Code? Sorry, hold on, let me unpin something so I can have space. So unpin this one. All right. All right, so we have a fantastic route. We have the register route that takes in user registration as well as a structured data. Remember, once we have a variable that which type is a pedantic class like this, right? It means that route is expecting what a structured data that should stay in the body section, which we are already familiar with, right? So I'll just go and test that man out. Let's go. So I'll go to route. I'll go to body, and I'll go to raw data. So I think I already have something like that, right? So I'll just pass in name, email, and password, right? So I have email. Here the email here I will just use user1@gmail.com. Call this user1. All right, and then the password in this case. Password should be equals to password 1. Right, so that's for that, and then I could just simply send this request. Confirm that my server is up and running. Right, so server is up and running, but it's lagging. I have to somehow break this man. All right, so you see, I have to somehow break this man there. All right, so let's go ahead and let's refresh that server again. So I think there was an error. You guys did not test this thing out as promised. You guys promised me that you guys would test this thing out. All right, so let's send again. So we have a problem saying that status is not found. So status, it says that no field status. All right, so let's go back and let's see what is happening. So if you go back to our code, and this is the problem, because here we said that that whatever is leaving, right, whatever is going out, now whatever is going out should have status, right? Should be name, email, and status. And we are sending out detail, and the only detail that we are sending out is what the user sent in. So let's do this. Let's print this man. Let's see what is happening here. Let's print status. Sorry, let's print detail so that we see what is happening. But this should actually add status, but for some reason it's not. Let's just see. For some reason it's not adding that status. Except I'm spelling it wrong. Same that. All right, so let's see this again. Fresh. Let's just see what status have for us. Or send. Let's see the error. Let's see if you can get the status at all. We are going to have to look. All right, so that did not even come in. All right, so that means we have to somehow make that to be available. Okay, so what do we do? Well, maybe we have to somehow do this manually, which is terrible. Which I don't like it, but you have to somehow do this manually, which I do not like it. So let's see. Maybe we could just say that data manual exists, and that data should be equals to name. The name here should be detail.name, and the email should be detail dot email. Right, and then the status. I hate this manual stuff. Should be success. And this is happening because we said that whatever is leaving should match up with that match. That is why we are having that problem there, right? And here I can now finally return data. If I do this will work, but for some reason if I do this, this should work, right? But let's try that out again. So we are testing the endpoint that we created, Mr. PC. I don't know why you haven't still changed that name till now. It's difficult to identify you as. All right, so let's test again. So this should go through as expected. So this actually goes through, right? And the route is working just fine, but it is manual. Manual in the sense that we are tapping out this thing like this, right? So yeah, that's true, that's true, that's true, that's true. Yeah, that is true, that is true. All right. Okay, so I think I may have I may have an idea of what is happening, but it requires us to use one library, which so because of that library, I will not go deep into it. Maybe we come next class, I'll bring in that library and we come back and talk about what I've just noticed, right? Well,
Okay.
talk about what I've just noticed.
Okay.
Sorry? Right. So, but basically, let's just stick with this manual for now. I'll tell you why. Okay. So the thing is that we are trying to inject a value into detail. Detail is basically is not a detail is what the user sent in for us. Right? Is what the user sent in for us. I'm not sure that we can inject something into it. So I was looking at that man up there. I was thinking that I was injecting it into this man here, but that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case, right? That wasn't the case. Right. So I think that is the issue. That is the issue. But hold on, let's check something first. We love trying new things. Hold on, let's see something. Uh, right. Let's leave it to next class. I mean, that will take time. Let's leave it to next class. We'll come back in next class.
Yes. Yes. Time has
Please
gone.
remind me. Yeah, yeah. Please remind me. We'll come back and we will work on this place again. Work on this place. All right. So we have to change this manner stuff. All right. Okay. So all right, so what again? So okay, let's test the login. So we the sign up is working. Let's test the login. So we have success, and let's go and log in. Right, so I'll leave that tab open, and I'll just create another tab here, and I'll come back. I'll copy this man. And I'll go to the next tab, and I'll press this man here, and I'll call this. I think this is login, I believe, and this is host.
Yes.
And this man takes in. This man takes in. It takes I think email and password, right? Yeah, email
Yes.
and password. So the email here is I make sure that my email is the same, which is user1 at Gmail, and the password is password1. Okay. So remember that has to be because without that we cannot log in, and that is where that all those our if logic now comes into play. Right. So here password and the password here. Let's just try a wrong password. Let's see what happens. We should get an error saying incorrect password. So that's good. Right. And then if we try something that is of wrong that is correct, right? Let's say password one, but then with a wrong username, right? Sorry, wrong email. Should not get no account with that email. So okay, that's fine. Right, so now let's go ahead and let's test with everything correct. So I have this correct now. Incorrect password. Okay, let's. Oh, one S is missing there, so this should be double S password one. Right, so click again. Are you guys serious? Let let's compare this.
You have pass 1S2W.
Oh, all right. So let's copy this man. Just gotta make sure that it is as it is. Right, so let's paste that man there, and let's click on this. All right, so it works as expected, right? So we've logged in and we've received the token, right? So this token is what we will now use to access every secure route in our server, right? In our server. So that is that about that's the second and of course every request that we've done so far, the middleware is executing. So you will see the response time. Excuse me, the response time and everything. So this is coming from where? It's coming from it's coming from it's coming from the middleware, right? So like I said, that is how middleware is. That's how they behave. They execute for all the requests, whether that request is relating to them or not. As far as it is request, they will fire, and they will also fire again once response is ready to go to client. So you can see that. So just keep that in mind, right? Each time you need to execute some configuration or a code. Once a request comes in and once a request is about to leave, the middleware is what you want to use, right?
Okay, so one last question. Sorry, Mr. Savior. Can you go back to Postman?
Right, Postman, okay?
Yes, this authorization part beside params, that authorization tab.
Okay.
Yes. At what point do we make use of this particular feature? Like if you click on that drop down under auth type, yes, you have some options like basic auth. If you click that basic auth, yes, you have username and password. Will this also work instead of using the raw data that we were providing from the body
No,
tab?
yeah, well, I've never used this tab, but I don't. It will not
Okay,
right. It will not
okay,
work. So basically, I think these
okay.
are all the basic form of authorization. So
Yeah, because we've
which
talked about JWT,
yeah,
yeah, I know.
exactly. So I think this is it, right? This is it. So this one, I think this one is mostly. Well, I've not really used this tab though, so I can't really explain to you what happens in this tab, right?
Okay,
Right. I can't really explain to you what happens in this tab, but it will not work because the class that O2 password bearer expects that thing should be available in the header part of this request. So in this part, so this is where
mm,
you want to add it, right? But here, I think this is more like, is it maybe like, I believe it's more like, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll make a research, right? And maybe next class
okay.
I'll tell you guys what it does, right?
Yeah,
But I
thank
think
you.
it should be like an interface for testing this thing, like a front end for, I can't really even tell, so I can't really even tell. Because, well, I'll make a research, right? Then I'll update us in next class, right?
Thank you, Mr. Savior. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any other question? Any other question? Okay, so in the absence of any other question, we wrap it up there for today's class. And of course, we are like I said, we have like almost like I think one major concept left. The concept of database. It looks small, but to be honest, I'm not sure that we can complete that database in one class. So it may likely span for two classes. Rather. Okay, so but then that is the major concept that is left with fast API. If you go through the definition, then you will see that we basically covered everything, or should I say mostly used stuff, or commonly used stuff. The rest are just additional things that, of course, I believe that you guys can look it up in your spare time, because the aim is for you guys to understand the little concept that we've done, right? I'm not really after completing the entire curriculum. The aim is to understand. I don't even mind going back to previous classes and still uh, recapping all of them, right? But majorly, I think that is what we have left, database. And like I said, this month is the last month for teaching, right? Except the project manager says, okay, add 1 or 2 more weeks for revision or stuff like that, right? But by default, that is how CodeCamp operates, right? 4 months bootcamp, where 3 months is for intensive teaching, 1 month is project, right? 1 month is project. So except that law change, I will still update us. But have it in mind that this month will likely be the end, the final month where we will likely meet two hours like this. If you are meeting because you have problem or difficulty in your track. So it will mostly be track based now, right? So let's say some back end guys that are working on a specific project, then I'll meet with them. Just those good group of back end guys, right? And maybe another back end guys for another project and meet with them. But the likelihood of all of us meeting like this will likely end this month, right? So whatever it is, you connect with your peers, and who knows, you guys can meet yourselves somewhere in the future. Who knows? So you connect and please, most importantly, please be on the final stage or not before the last week, right? So that once I do the final grading of the last phase, you just get pushed straight towards project phase, right? Because the thing is that once project phase starts, they will create a new channel. That channel, someone that's not on the final stage cannot see that channel, right? So please, you have to see that channel, right? You have to see that channel. Okay, so I think that's basically all. And when we come tomorrow, we will look at how to do a cross-origin resource sharing. It's more like a configuration.
Tomorrow or next tomorrow, Mr.
Sorry,
Basler?
next tomorrow.
Okay.
Once we come next tomorrow, we will see how we can configure, because the cross-origin resource sharing is more like a configuration. It's not really like a big code or stuff like that. So you see, so it's more like a configuration. So we see that how that configuration works, and then we see how we can arrange our files, and then we just and then we kickstart with SQL and see how this thing works, right? And see how this thing works. All right. So for Barry, I'll go and look at your tax now, and if they are due for promotion, if you are due for promotion, you be promoted, right? So I'll look at that stuff. All right. So please have a fantastic week ahead, and have a fantastic day ahead as well. I'll see you guys in our next class. Bye.